Good afternoon, everyone. Illinois Extension and Illinois Broadband Lab is happy to host another Illinois Office of Broadband update for you today. I'm Nancy Woodrowgo, State Specialist in Community and Economic Development. We're happy to have Matt Schmit, Director of Broadband within our Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and Shubhika Agarwal, Coordinator with the Illinois Broadband Lab. They're here to discuss state and federal broadband maps and give us a reminder of that review process with our state infrastructure grant program. Matt, Shubhika, we're so excited to hear more from you. Thank you for your time and being here today, and I'll hand it over to you, Matt, now. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Nancy. Really appreciate the chance to follow up with the webinar talking about mapping. There's a lot happening on the mapping front, and we thought it's high time to talk about it. And so about a month ago, we had a webinar talking about round 3 of the Connect Illinois Broadband Grant Program. Some of what we're going to talk about today really ties into round 3 of Connect Illinois, and some of it is more kind of contextual, what's happening at the federal and state levels with regards to mapping. And so just looking at the agenda we have in front of you, I'll be passing the mic over to Shubhika here in a moment. She can talk a little bit about the Federal Communications Commission, their broadband map, and recent challenge processes, where we're at with that. We'll also spend some time on our own Illinois broadband map. We've invested in this for the last 3 years, really proud of this as a tool that helps us make sound investments, get a good understanding of different aspects of the digital divide that goes beyond just basic broadband availability. We'll also talk a lot about the Connect Illinois Round 3 mapping and merit review processes. Both are underway right now, and we want folks to know how to engage in those processes. We'll do a quick demo of the Illinois Broadband Map, particularly as it relates to the mapping review process, and then finally opening it up for Q&A. As always, we really encourage folks to participate in the chat. If you got any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, we just want to emphasize we are always here to connect with you. We want to make sure that what we're doing is transparent, makes sense to you, to folks around the state, and that we make the most of this truly historic opportunity we have in front of us. And so, folks, if you listened to me drone on and on a month ago in a similar webinar, you are in luck, because I am now passing the mic over to Shubhika to take us through some federal mapping. And Shubhika, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Matt. Yeah. So to get us started, yes, the FCC National Broadband Maps. So the FCC was supposed to be coming out with the new broadband maps because of the Broadband Data Act, which is the Broadband Deployment Accuracy and Technological Availability Act. So we had like a first set of maps available in November 18 last year. And this is essentially going to be like, really helping with the federal funding that's coming in, and also with the granularity at the household level. It's generally a great step towards broadband mapping nationally. So just to give like a background, the FCC had its first round of broadband data collection from ISPs in June last year, ran until September. We had our maps come out in November 2022. And since then, there have been challenge processes that have been open to individuals and also to like state broadband offices, local governments, service providers, and any other entities who would like to participate. So that's been open. This year in January 3rd, like until May 1st, this was the second sort of window for ISPs to submit their updated availability data. And we should be having the updated maps again by the FCC sometime in May 2023. So now moving on to, as I mentioned, the bulk challenge processes were open, and the Illinois Office of Broadband participated in those. So this slide essentially is going over the challenge processes. We had like a lot of content also developed on this space, helping our communities and just consumers who'd like to participate in the process get a sense of how they can do so. So this is a quick overview of the 2 challenge processes. Firstly, the Fabric Challenge and the Fixed Availability Challenge. So the Fabric is essentially all the broadband serviceable locations on a map. So any location that can have access to or has access to fixed broadband internet service should be on the map. And again, it's not the most accurate. It's a map in development. So the challenge process really help in making it more accurate. So reasons for why one would submit a Fabric challenge would be if the location's missing, or if it's incorrectly identified, if the address or unit count for the location on the map is again inaccurate, or if it's placed on a wrong location on the map. That would be a cause for a fabric challenge. And the second is the availability challenge. So on top of the broadband serviceable location fabric, each location then lists the different providers that have reported service in those areas at the respective speeds and the technology that they provide. So that essentially forms the availability data. And examples of why one would file an availability challenge would be the reported service is not offered at that location, or the speed or technology that is reported is not accessible, or if the provider has demanded connection charges that exceeded standard installation, and finally, if they failed to schedule or perform installation within 10 business days. So the Illinois Office of Broadband, we participated in the bulk challenge process, and a few things that we undertook to finalize our challenges was firstly identify broadband serviceable locations through mapping analytics. We primarily used the state's 911 data to kind of get a comprehensive look at locations in the state and how that compares to locations that exist on the FCC maps. We had a bunch of webinars and office hours for consumers and organizations and partners who wanted to work with us, participate in the process, and just get more information. So also individual feedback from there. We conducted targeted audit and field check for areas with high density of fixed wireless and copper locations, again, to see if that's accurate information on the maps. And if not, we challenged those. And finally, we had a submission ready that we submitted to the FCC. So what that looked like was we submitted nearly 87,000 fabric challenges in the first round in November 2022, of which nearly 7,700 were accepted by the FCC. And the map on the right essentially shows locations, the number of fabric challenge locations that were accepted, and it's kind of evenly distributed throughout the state. As of March 2023, we also submitted additional 54,000 locations, and that is pending the FCC's review. So we'll have more updates on that later. And for the service availability, we filed nearly 41,000 service availability challenges. And there's a breakdown of the methodology that was used. So as we mentioned, it was a mix of field audit and desktop research and also consumer information. So that's the different sources and methodologies used. And as of today, nearly 29,000, so 28,762 of those challenges are upheld. And this is with discussions with the ISPs, and we are still continuing to resolve the others that are pending. And if that doesn't work out, the FCC is going to also be reviewing these on a rolling basis. So that's what that process looks like. Now, so that was all about the new federal maps and challenge process and all of that. So now moving on to the Illinois Broadband Maps, the state's map. So we collaborate with Connected Nation, our mapping vendor, for our the Illinois Broadband Map that we've created. The first set of maps were released in June 2021, and since then we've been updating them every 6 months. The data on our current map, it's as of November 2022, and we should have a new map pretty soon, end of May in 2023 this year. So we started with our ISP outreach for the new data in March 2023, and that's almost towards its end. So we'll be soon processing that data for the new set of maps. There'll be a few changes with the new maps. So we are wanting to again transition to a more address level, mapping information from the polygon sort of service areas information that we currently have on the map. There's again going to be a continued field validation to inform some of our challenges and just to get a sense of what service really looks like. There's going to be a lot of granting, and we'll talk about Connect Illinois round 3 and the subsequent rounds pretty much soon in the presentation today. And then there's also going to be support for the federal funding that's coming in, how the maps inform where those funds really go in the state. So as I mentioned, with the new Illinois Broadband Map, we're really trying to incorporate the location data, which is referred to as the BSLs, the broadband serviceable locations. So currently our methodology was reaching out to providers with their service areas in residential areas. And we also had additional field validation and utilizing like other secondary data sources in cases where we thought we needed like a little more clarity on the kind of service that's being provided. So that was all the different sources where we were utilizing to basically identify unserved and underserved locations, areas in the state. And this essentially is being used to define eligibility for the Connect Illinois broadband grant program. But now moving forward, so like trying to transition more on like the location data, more on the household level. So with the new FCC maps and the broadband serviceable location fabric that's available through the FCC again. So essentially states will be required to like map the locations through the various state grant programs also to the FCC fabric locations. So just a heads up to like providers who have received grants for Connect Illinois in the past or who've currently applied, we'll soon be reaching out with a request to get a sense of like the fabric location IDs that are served as part of their project areas, again, so that we can map it to kind of the new system that we're transitioning into, which is going to be more granular and at the household level. So that's a summary of the federal maps, the challenge process, and how we've been doing and will plan on doing like broadband mapping in Illinois. I'm now going to pass it on to Matt for everything Connect Illinois and the mapping review.
Yeah, thanks. Nice job, Shubhika, our resident map and data expert here at the Illinois Broadband Lab. And so if you ever have any questions about mapping or data, Shubhika is your person. Just following up on a couple of questions that were in the chat box. So Illinois did really well in terms of the number of fabric challenges accepted, top 6 the last time I looked in the country. But in terms of our percentage, we saw on average around 10 to 15% of challenges accepted by the FCC. I couldn't speculate exactly on why so many were rejected. That's just the average across the country is a low acceptance rate. I think what's important is knowing that we're kind of graded on a curve here. And so as long as we're doing better than the majority of states, we're going to come out ahead in terms of what that means for our allocation of BEAD formula funds. And so we put a lot of work into that fabric challenge. We're pushing very hard for everything to be accepted, both on the availability and the location challenges. And I think we're in a pretty good position relative to the rest of the country. But great question in the chat. And if there are any others, just feel free to keep at it. We'll keep an eye on that chat box. But folks, without fail, I always like to point audiences to our broadband website. So this is the Connect Illinois site on the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. This should look familiar. You've got lots of options on the left-hand vertical menu here. Maps and data, you can see there towards the bottom. You scroll down and it's going to give you some more information on the next slide regarding our round 3 notice of funding opportunity for the Connect Illinois program. And so what we have here is available the NOFO, the application packet, both part 1, the overview, additional guidance, also part 2, which is the application template that you'd actually fill out if you were submitting an application for Connect Illinois. Of course, we opened up the Connect Illinois round 3 application process after a year-long pause for administrative rulemaking. So we are accepting applications for round 3. We will be doing so on a rolling basis for the next year plus. We'll also be engaged in mapping and merit review for the next year plus. And so we're ready. We're a well-oiled machine, and we're really looking forward to making investments in really strong projects across the state. So you get into the next slide, and it's going to tell you a little bit more about the round 3 NOFO. Again, it's a combination of state and federal funds. We talked about this on our last webinar. $350 million in total are available. There's a requirement that all grant-funded work be scalable to 100 symmetrical service. A maximum grant amount of $10 million, but applicants can apply for more than one grant at a time. And so if there's a phased approach that you'd like to speak to, or if you'd like to perhaps divide up a county-wide build, you can do that and come to us all at once, just in separate applications. $10 million grant maximum. The total project can far exceed that. We have 3 different categories to make sure that this truly is a statewide investment. We've got broadband access for areas that are either unserved or underserved. We have broadband innovation that emphasizes novel uses of broadband for precision agriculture or telehealth or remote learning or economic development. We also have urban broadband to address the needs of our urban areas, population centers of 75,000 or more facing unique challenges on the wrong side of the digital divide. In terms of eligible projects, really focused on making sure that what we're investing in is filling in the broadband map around the state. We want to make sure that we meet our goals, because we have to meet our goals. Universal connectivity around the state, every home, business, every broadband serviceable location, as Shubhika had mentioned. And then in terms of the application process, it's rolling. We've learned a lot from rounds 1 and 2. We know what a great application looks like. When we see a great application, we want to fund it. We want to get folks to work, building out their networks, filling in the map. And so we're going to talk a little bit more today about the merit and mapping review processes, 2 critical aspects of the Connect Illinois Broadband Grant Program. So the next slide, we'll dive into these processes a little bit more. This text, folks, pulled right from the Notice of Funding Opportunity available on our website. The merit review process is an opportunity for our expert merit reviewers, a panel of folks who've worked in broadband for many years, to look at applications compared against our scoring rubric and really separate the good from the great applications, and also make sure that we're giving feedback to those applications and those applicants that aren't quite ready for funding yet. And so the next slide will talk a little bit more about how the funding breaks out. This table is taken right from the Notice of Funding Opportunity, our various categories and selection criteria, ranging from project impact, non-state match and demonstration of need, community support, project readiness, project viability and sustainability, affordability and adoption assistance, and then finally open access, shared use, and business strategy. Our team is going to get a good understanding of what's being proposed, what are the strengths and weaknesses of a given application, and scores will be assigned accordingly. What we've seen in the last couple of years of administering the Connect Illinois Broadband Grant Program, out of 200 available points, if you get over 150 points, you have a great application on your hands, and we want to fund that right away. If your application falls below 100, there's some key deficits that need to be addressed before we're ready to fund you. Those projects that are in between 100 to 150 points, those are the projects that we want to allow a market to form, essentially on a quarterly basis. And we compare apples to apples and see which projects are proposed statewide and put ourselves on a nice pace to make best use of that $350 million available to us in round 3 of the Connect Illinois program. And so again, what we're going to be doing, planning to fund the truly exemplary projects on a rolling basis, allowing a quarterly market to form so that we can compare good but not great projects against each other and make awards accordingly. And important to note, projects that fall below that 100-point threshold, we're going to reach out to you, give you some constructive feedback, help you improve your application. And those applications that are good but not great, again, scoring between 100 and 149 points, they will roll over to the next market basket and be compared against subsequent applications that come in. And so again, the whole key here is we're starting a conversation. We know how much work goes into an application. We want to put applicants, whether you're a local government, a partnership, a cooperative, one of our many internet service providers, over 130 of them in Illinois, we want to put you in a position to have a clear view of what's expected, put forth your best ideas in the most compelling way, and hopefully get funding and help us meet our goals. Universal broadband connectivity across the state. Now, jumping into the next slide, we talk a little bit more about the mapping review process. And this, again, is taken right from our Notice of Funding Opportunity. This information is available on that document, posted on our Connect Illinois website. But we talk a little bit here about the process. And again, it's conversational. We want to make sure that our applicants, our incumbent providers, our local communities all have a voice in the projects that we fund and in the decisions that we make happen in a fully public, transparent way. And so I'm very proud of the work that we've done in the mapping review process over the last 3 years. I'm not aware of a more transparent, publicly facing process than this. When we get applications, we post a description of the project and the map on our Illinois Broadband Map, so folks can check it out. Proposed projects for round 3 of Connect Illinois are available. In a moment, we'll take you through what that looks like on our Illinois Broadband Map. But the process that our notice of funding opportunity speaks to, all right, publication of proposed project areas and project descriptions. That's step one. When applications come in, we want to update that mapping review layer as quickly as we can, give folks an opportunity to see what's being proposed and get a general idea of the nature of the project, and certainly a very specific idea of where that project would build out. Secondly, we'll be publicizing relevant deadlines for the mapping review process, at least 20 business days for feedback from incumbent providers, from local governments, from other stakeholders. And so with round 3, we are easing into this mapping review process. We want to give everybody an opportunity to get acquainted with it, to get a feel for the Illinois Broadband Map, if you haven't seen it before, to understand how the mapping review process works. And then we'll be setting some specific, essentially, deadlines and timelines for when feedback comes to us and when we engage applicants, other stakeholders, and drive towards a decision. Now, driving to that decision begins with feedback we receive on our broadband@illinois.gov website. And so this is prescribed on our website, how an incumbent provider or another stakeholder may register a mapping review challenge. Essentially, it starts with an email to our shared account so that we have multiple eyes on it, we can log it, and then we can get to work on understanding what's being questioned in a proposal. Secondly, we'll communicate with the applicant that, hey, there's been a concern raised, whether it's a core eligibility question, or it might be a potential area that is not needing broadband investment. We want to make best use of the dollars we have. So we want a real good understanding of what broadband is available where. And so we'll let folks know that a challenge has been leveled, that the mapping review process has been activated, if you will, for a given proposal. And then again, that conversation between the challenger, if you will, in the mapping review process and the applicant begins. And it could involve back and forth, bringing more data into the fold. And then finally, we make a determination and we communicate that with both the applicant and the entity, whether it's a local community or an incumbent provider or another stakeholder of the decision, so that folks have a good understanding of what's happening, how we got from point A to point B, and we can move forward with an announcement of a project for funding. One key piece here that I want to emphasize for folks, just to be respectful of everybody's time and to help us get the best mapping we possibly can. If you're a provider and you're going to participate in the mapping review process, you have to also participate in the Illinois Broadband Map data collection. And so our partner Connected Nation and our Office of Broadband, we ask our providers to provide data to us twice a year so that we can update our maps with that provider data in May and in November of each year. We want to make sure that we're getting your most accurate, timely, granular data that we can. And so please, if you get an email, a letter from me, make sure that you're responding kind. We want to make sure that the map is fully reflective of your broadband that's available in a given area. At the end of the day, we want to make best use of our dollars. Knowing if an area is already covered is really helpful. And so it's in all of our interest for everybody, all of our providers, to participate in that mapping data collection process. And I'm proud to say that we've had tremendous participation among providers here in Illinois. Non-disclosure agreements are available. The office never sees the hard data. It really is aggregated and populates our map. And so if you got any questions on that front, just let us know. broadband@illinois.gov. Belaboring the point, but it's a really important one. We want to make this mapping review process work for everyone. Now, the next slide will take you to where the mapping review process is provided more detail on our website. This website, along with our Connect Illinois newsletter and email correspondence, will be the ways that we'll keep folks up to speed on the mapping review process. So my advice, folks, is to bookmark this page if you're interested in the mapping review process and check it periodically, because this is where, well, one of the sources that we'll be updating with processes, deadlines, where things stand. We want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to get the latest information. We'll also be referencing this page probably in every newsletter moving forward. So the idea here is this is where you can get the most current information. In what you see here, how you start the conversation if you've got a concern about a proposal that's listed on our mapping review layer, send us an email. Ideally, in the subject heading, you offer broadband mapping, and give us a brief description of the project. It could be a name, just so that we're able to catalog the feedback accordingly and start the conversation with you. There's a lot that we've covered in the mapping review process. We'll certainly be happy to circle back on this and talk a little bit more about it. But pulling back from sharing NOFO slides or screenshots, who can participate? This is an open process. Applicants, incumbent providers, impacted communities. That's really important. We want to make sure that any project we fund is one that has broad community support, that local leadership and others are aware of the project and are excited about the project. And so we really stress this is a great opportunity for helping us get it right. Participate on the front end, provide your data to our mapping vendor, help us build the most accurate and timely Illinois broadband map. And then if you've got any questions, any concerns with projects that are proposed, reach out to broadband@illinois.gov. Again, conversational. We expect a lot of back and forth before decisions are made, if anything is contentious. So with that said, we can get into the next slide here, and it'll show you a little bit more about the Illinois Broadband Map. Hopefully, folks, you have been here and seen this before. You can see the link in the chat, both to the mapping review webpage as well as the Illinois Broadband Map. This is a layer that we update regularly now that we're getting into the mapping review process, and we start making awards. And so this is round 1 and round 2 projects, and some of our projects from round 1 are completing this spring, and this layer will be updated as well as the mapping review layer of incoming projects that will be proposed. The next map gets into those proposals, and you can see an overlay of 2 layers. One in the pink color, areas that are eligible for broadband access funding in Illinois. And then also in the green color, proposals that we have received for round 3 of Connect Illinois. And so with that said, I'd like to pass the mic back over to Shubhika to keep everybody awake, to give me a chance to catch my breath, and also to give you a much deeper understanding of the Illinois Broadband Map and how this layer, the mapping review layer, works. And so Shubhika, take it away.
Sure, thanks, Matt. I'm quickly going to stop sharing my screen and share the map.
And I see a question in here. How do we get started with the data collection? Please just send me your email address in the chat or reach out to me at broadband@illinois.gov. We'll make an introduction to Connected Nation just to make sure that you know where you can submit data. All right, go ahead, Shubhika.
Great, thanks, Matt. So yeah, do we have a link to the map in the chat already? If not, we'll just post it later on, but this is essentially what the map's going to look like when we just log on. So for anybody who hasn't used this before, hasn't been at the web page yet, just to orient you to the various tabs that exist here. So firstly, the grant eligibility. So we have the proposed layer, projects here in green for the mapping review, and then the ones in red is basically all the areas in the state that are eligible. Then we have other layers on here that we'll get into as we talk more about this later on, that relate to grant eligibility. Then we have the access tab on here, which basically has the different speeds and technology. So the wireline layers and the all fixed layers. So let me actually first go back here and turn all of these off, and then we can see what all of this looks like. So as we know, with Connect Illinois, it's areas that do not have access to 100 by 20 megabits per second of wireline internet. So this layer on here is on the areas that have, in orange, is basically have access to 100 by 20 wireline service. And this layer was revised as of March 22nd this year. There's also a lot of different layers on different types of technology. So fiber, and let me just go back and close this. So yeah, the different shades of fiber and down here on the right is the legend. So anytime we click on a layer, we'll be able to see what the colors mean on the bottom right here. There's fiber, cable, DSL, and fixed wireless information. There's also mobile 5G and LTE coverage across the state. And again, this is data collected through like ISP outreach, field validation, and a couple of other sources just to make sure it's as accurate as possible. We have information about maximum advertised download speeds across the state. There's information on density of providers by different speeds. So this is for 100 megabits symmetric density of providers with 100 by 20. So we see there, like, if it's a green or a blue, there's basically more number of providers in that, area. We have a couple of them distributed across the state. And then we also have density of providers for 25 by 3 speeds. One really, interesting layer is the underserved wireline again, and the unserved wireline. So this essentially also gives us the density of households in these unserved locations. So the darker the pink, it means there are more unserved households in that particular area. So again, potentially a good area for investment. So that could be one layer that people might be interested in. Then we have the statistics tab, which basically has information from the American Community Survey, indicators on education, income, and race, and things that would actually affect or could help inform some of the access and adoption trends that we see in our communities. There's again broadband adoption statistics, so the percentage of households with an internet subscription, what that looks like, and without internet subscription. So all of that information. We have tools to like draw and just measure things on the map. So if you want to highlight a specific area that you're working on, there's always this draw tool on here. You can add points, lines, or just rectangles on there if you want to highlight something and share it. So after you do that, there's also this export map feature so that you can print it out. It's on the bottom right here. So anything that you've done on the map can be exported and shared. So we're trying to make it as helpful for anybody who's using the map. Bring in the data that you have. So there's also like an add data feature here. If you use an ArcGIS online service, you can just translate it on here. Or if you have your own geospatial files, that again can be imported into the map and read in reference to the other data that we have on here. So that's some of the information that we have on here. I'm going to turn all of these layers off. Go to the home extent, and down here we have in the general tab information about the various community anchor institutions and the boundary layers. So definitely one I'd like to highlight is county. And with this, when we click on a specific county, we also get the information of the percentage of households that are served by the various speeds. And again, this is distributed by all fixed and wireline. So that's why you see there are two sort of percentages for every speed demarcation. So 25 by 3 households, that includes all fixed, and then there's 25 by 3 wireline households. So we have that information for each of the counties. If you want to look at that information for different geographies, you can also do so for like a school district. So let's, for example, just select the first one that comes up here on the list. So you could do that and select apply, and it would essentially zoom into that. And again, you'll have statistics of how many households within that school district have access to the different speeds mentioned here. So we're turning that off, going back to the home extent. And so definitely explore this a little more, because, you can also look at data for the different legislative districts, economic development regions, so the 10 economic development regions in the state, all of that. And then we also have quite a few other boundary layers on here. So the state house districts, the state senate districts, and then the congressional districts as well, and the economic development regions. Then on the federal tab down here, we have all the various federal funding that has come into the state. So again, there's a lot of federal funding that's come in, and the different colors refer to the different programming and how the areas have been benefited across the state. And finally, the state projects tab, which has information about, turn this off. Yeah, the public Wi-Fi hotspots. Again, this is as of April 2021. So we're working on, again, updating this and making it, most current. So we'll have updates on that, but again, a good information. And because it's interactive, we can essentially click on, any of these spots that we're interested in and get more information on the services that are available at this particular location. And then most importantly, with respect to Connect Illinois, we have our round 1 and round 2 projects, layers on here. Again, interested in any, just click on it. You'll get information about the provider, the amount of funding they received, and also a brief description about their project. So now let's, with, us kind of oriented to the different tabs and a bunch of different information that's available on here. Specifically, if you were to look at grant eligibility, the link basically opens up with the Connect Illinois proposed projects on there for round 3 and the grant eligibility layer shown in red. So this is what it would look like. Another thing, so like, as we mentioned, it is any area that does not currently have access to 100 by 20 wireline service. So there's also this locate internet service provider in a particular area. So you could type in an address that you're looking for, or you could just drop in a pin and it's gonna take you to that area and give you a list of providers. And it's gonna take a while. But essentially what we'll again see is that, yeah, we do have a few providers on here, but they do not provide access to 100 by 20. So we do have, 25 by 3 and 100 by 10. So that is why this area is eligible, and we have like a project proposal. So again, like a feature that I wanted to highlight for people who might not be aware and would like to get a sense of other providers, incumbent providers, in like, areas where projects have been proposed. So, yes, again, it's going to take a while to load. Let's give it a minute. Yeah, so the best way when you're looking at the map would be, again, if there's a project that you think kind of, comes into your area, or you just want to investigate more, just click on it. You'll get a sense of the amount, grant amount that they've requested, the location that they're planning to cover, like the counties, and also a brief description again of the project, number of locations that they want to be serving as part of their project area is also on there. You could also, again, with like, the access layers that we have on here, you could look at it with reference to some of those. So again, like turning on the 100 by 20 wireline. So you see that kind of fills it up, and going back to grant eligibility, we also have our Connect Illinois round 1 and round 2 projects. And then we also list a few federal projects. So we have the USDA Community Connect and Reconnect programs funded in the state. And if I were to like turn off the mapping review layer for a bit, you see all of these different layers. So essentially the 100 by 20 wireline, the Connect Illinois round 1 and round 2 projects, and the USDA funding. If you turn all of that on, it basically covers the map. So any area that does not currently have 100 by 20, has not been previously funded by a Connect Illinois or a USDA grant, is essentially eligible for the round 3 of funding. We also have a layer for RDOF on here. Again, it basically shows the areas that have been authorized as of November 10, 2022. So if you're planning for an application in an area or want to get a sense about the providers, again, you can turn that layer on, and when you click on it, there's going to be information on the provider. Let me just turn off the county boundaries for a second. And okay, essentially that should work, but probably the internet. So that's all the layers on here. And again, like driving back attention to the mapping review shows the boundaries for where the projects have been proposed. And yeah, you can take a closer look into what that looks like for your communities. Happy to answer. Okay, yeah. Also, before we move on, we also have a few files for download. So the access files can be downloaded right here with the first link. We have the eligibility layer available as a shape file for download, and we also have all of these different projects available as a KMZ file for download.
Yeah, nice job, Shubhika. Again, this is a resource that we've invested in heavily over the last 3 years, and we're really thankful that we have it right now, because as you look at the federal map, it's a vast improvement, shows a lot of promise, but it's not quite ready for use in a grant program like ours right now. And so, again, playing off of the Illinois Broadband Map for the entirety of round 3. That's not to say that we don't welcome additional information into the conversation. And so if folks do have other information at your disposal, you're welcome to bring that into either an initial application or a mapping review challenge, either way. There was a question in the chat just now. I answered it, but I wanted to highlight it. This layer of round 3 applications, it's going to change, because as we get applications, we will be adding them to the mix. And also for those applications that came to us in 2022, when the year-long pause was underway for administrative rulemaking, we have given those applicants an opportunity to look at what they put forth and to either pull them back, to leave them as is, or to update their budgets, because a lot has changed in a year. And so basically what is seen right now on this mapping review layer is just projects that we received in 2022 that have not been pulled back. And so some of these projects could pull back, and so this map could shrink before it expands with new applications. And so in terms of kind of triaging, we are taking a look at the 2022 confirmed projects first, and then we will open up the merit review and mapping review process for 2023 projects. And then we'll get into the quarterly cadence that's articulated in our NOFO that we anticipated when we launched round 3 back in January of 2022. So hopefully that all makes sense. I think it's just a reminder, we're restarting a program. We want to give everybody plenty of time to get acquainted with what's been proposed, get a feel for the mapping review process, and engage. And so we'll make sure that we over communicate wherever possible in terms of where things are at. All right. I think Nancy would probably ask this question, but I'll ask it too. Any questions of us? I think there have been great ideas and questions raised in the chat. Anything else that that folks would like to raise in terms of questions or concerns? Otherwise, we do want to point folks to the various links that we've included in the chat, and really stay in touch. We want to make sure that folks feel empowered to participate in this process, both as an applicant and as somebody who weighing in with feedback in the mapping review process.
Thanks, Matt. And while anyone else is putting their questions in the chat, I just want to say thanks also to Shubhika for putting those great links in the chat as well. We did have some other questions, and of course you can let me know if you, I think I was able to track the ones that you sort of addressed, and thank you for doing that. We did receive a question early on about if there would be a wireless infrastructure grant program for those high density, low income housing types of areas, and would this be a better fit for the digital equity grant application? So I just thought I would open that up to you, you all. I think that that's a great question, and if folks have that concern also here in this forum, we can address it. So.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's one of the reasons we have the 3 categories for funding: broadband access, that plays specifically off of the eligibility layers for unserved and underserved. We have broadband innovation, that is really an emphasis on the uses of the broadband expansion. Telehealth, distance learning, precision ag are the common examples cited. And then we also have urban broadband that helps us get at different aspects of the digital divide. And so one category or another likely would be a fit for a proposed project that you speak to, Nancy. And I think we definitely want to hear from folks on their ideas. We want to make this program work for you, to meet the needs and the concerns that you're hearing at the local level. And so I would just invite folks, we offer office hours to prospective applicants all the time. Don't hesitate to reach out at broadband@illinois.gov. We'd be happy to set some time aside to just, I think, get into the program in more detail and hear what your ideas might be.
Thank you so much, Matt. I think when communities start digging into their information gathering for what the barriers to access might be, if it's infrastructure or adoption or something else, then they might find that there's some overlap. And speaking of overlap, we had another question about what is done if there is one Meritus project that overlaps in service area with another.
So I think what I'm understanding here is if we've received two proposals that overlap each other, and this has happened in the past, and we've used the mapping review process to understand, what is happening at that local level. And in the case that I'm thinking of, there was actually a federal award that was made, and that there were two compelling applications that overlapped each other. And in that case, because both applications were strong, we worked with the applicants to essentially divide and conquer and say, hey, here's where we will fund application A, here's where we will fund application B. As applicants, you are free to do whatever you want with your private dollars, the non-state, non-grant dollars. But in terms of the project areas that we're going to fund, we're going to make sure that we don't cover the same area twice. And so that's the kind of approach that we would take. It's not to say that we would automatically take the same approach in the future. It really kind of depends on the situation. If you've got two compelling applications, both applicants demonstrate, I think, an ability to get the job done and do really good work, that could lead to a similar outcome in the future.
And then we had a question about scoring, if there was a score that would be relatively low, if there would be time to highlight issues with each application and get back to applicants.
Oh, absolutely. Look, this is going to be years of making investments in broadband. And for us to get this right, we want to work closely with our communities and our broadband providers and all applicants to the program. And so if you've put the time in to submit an application and it falls short of that 100 point threshold, or it's not funded for other reasons, we're going to give you feedback, and we're going to try to give you feedback as quick as we can, because again, we know how much work goes into this. We want to put you in a position to be successful. And frankly, we need great applications to come our way, and we're very happy to work with you on the front end and on the back end.
And then there was a question about where one could find instructions to submit a challenge, and I believe that was to the state Illinois Broadband Map. And after that question was posed, we put a link to the mapping review section of the Connect Illinois website. However, just let us know, maybe put another comment in the chat if you feel like that question wasn't answered, or if you had a different type of question. But speaking of mapping, there's another question on the FCC map. How can I tell if my location, specifically my HOA, has been submitted as a bulk challenge?
So Shubhika, would you like to speak to that? You were very closely involved with the bulk challenge process.
Sure, absolutely. So with respect to this comment, if you had submitted your challenge through the survey that we put out at the Illinois Office of Broadband website, then we have probably, yes, we've shared that with the FCC as part of the bulk challenge. In January 2023. But if you can share your details in the chat, we can just make sure that that's happened. And also with the follow-up process. So if it was a fabric challenge, we should essentially be able to help you get a sense of whether that was added to the map. And if it was an availability challenge, again, we can get in touch with you and let you know what's the status of that and what the provider's response has been.
Sure. And Nancy, there's a question about potential middle mile focused applications. And so, yes, I mean, our program is available to last mile builds as well as middle mile builds. Historically, we've directed folks towards the broadband access category for middle mile builds. But if there's something specific or innovative that middle mile investment is enabling. The broadband innovation category could be another one. Feel free to reach out to us. I think urban broadband could be a good fit as well. It really depends on, what is the nature of that middle mile build and what goals are you trying to accomplish. And so it really kind of depends on a case by case basis.
Thanks. That's a great answer. I was wondering myself, and that's really important nuance for folks to realize, is it could be outright infrastructure, but really if there's an implication for what that would be used for, then to look at the other category. And we'll also put the broadband email also in the chat, so folks have that as well as in the follow-up. It seems that our national and state maps just keep getting better and better. And I really, really appreciate you both coming on today to give us the update on both of those, and especially the state map. It's a coveted tool by other states. I know that we're one of the states that has such a great tool that I think we've heard from other states that they wish they had something similar. So we're very lucky here in Illinois to have such an amazing in-depth tool. And we hope to continue to see how everybody can work together to continue with that data collection and refinement. So is there any follow-up? Of course, folks, there's a few minutes left, and you can put any more questions in, but do you have any takeaways, Shubhika or Matt, that you want to mention to our group today?
Shubhika, anything come to mind for you?
I think, yeah, definitely make use of the mapping resource, and we want you to take a look at those projects, and yeah, we want to make sure the funding's going where it has to go, where it needs to go. So definitely engage in the process, reach out to us with questions or anything. Also, like if you need us to get on a call to help you better understand the map, always happy to do that. You have our contact information. So yeah, we're here to help you any way possible. To make sure that you're able to engage with the process that we were able to share with you today.
Thanks, Shubhika. I think the thing that I would just mention is, our map continues to evolve and for the better, and we look forward to adding location data soon. And so I think our map is going to start to look more and more like the federal map, but at the same time retain a lot of the qualities that makes it particularly useful, timely, accurate, granular, and also the incorporation of various data sets and layers to get a real good understanding of what's happening where. And so to that end, keep a lookout for the location data layer on the Illinois Broadband Map. And also, if you're an applicant to Connect Illinois, we likely will be following up for Fabric location ID information to help us populate our maps with location data. And so keep an eye out for some communications from our office in the due diligence or follow-up phase of the Connect Illinois merit review process. And so again, that Fabric location ID information that you submitted to FCC in the fall, we want to make sure that we're gathering that for specific projects that have been proposed to us as well. And so again, you'll be hearing from us if you've submitted an application.
Thank you so much. I'm really appreciative of both of your presentations and answers for questions today. We have one more question from Monroe County that I thought was interesting and could actually kind of be seen as a general question that counties who are just kind of starting out and getting organized might have. We have a lot of several other Illinois Broadband Lab staff on the line today who can see your comment. And so I think that you'll be getting a follow-up on where Monroe is, either where your county is either locally or regionally, and sort of next steps that you could take. So thank you for putting that information in there, and wanted to acknowledge that and draw attention to it. And then I see the other question here about why is the FCC broadband map data as of June 30 and not December? That's an interesting question. I'm not for sure which one you're looking at, but I'll pass it on to our experts.
So the FCC map, they basically had their first round of data collection from June to September 2022. So that's the collection period, and yes, the data kind of reflects service as of that time period. And yeah, that's how it goes. There's usually a little bit of delay in when the data is collected and when the maps are published. So with the new round, as I mentioned, there was a data collection January to March this year. And so the new maps coming out potentially in May, sometime around May, that's going to have data that was collected between January and March of this year. So a little more updated than the previous version. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure I speak for many on the call just in saying thank you once more to both of you. We hope everybody has a great weekend and good luck with all of the work you're doing in your counties. Illinois Extension is very grateful to partner with Illinois Broadband Lab and the Office of Broadband to continue this outreach, and really appreciate all of the time and expertise.
Shubhika, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to what lies ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.